Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of the Prayer Link. The focus this week, mental health. Author and trauma therapist Dr. Anita Phillips says too often people have been taught to view their emotions as problematic or something to be suppressed. She says it isn't true and emotions are not the enemy, but rather a part of yourself that has been misunderstood for too long. I recently had an opportunity to talk with her about it. Take a look. Welcome to the show, Dr. Phillips.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I am excited because I want to dive into your book, The Garden Within. But before we do, we want to kind of talk about mental health issues and the church. First of all, your faith journey. Let's talk a little bit about that. How you have been able to integrate this with mental health.
Yeah, so what I found out was that none of it was ever separate. We are embodied creatures, so everything is happening in here at the same time. Our spirit, our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors, everything is connected. Just like in a garden, you can't separate the plant from the soil.
Yeah.
If you pull it out of the soil to try to learn about it, it will be dead soon. You can only examine everything in connection. Seed, soil, plant, fruit, all linked together, just like spirit, heart, mind, and body.
Wow. How do you integrate your Christian faith into your work as a trauma therapist? I mean, how does that work?
Well, really, my work extends from my Christian faith, so I don't need to mix them together. They are one and the same. I went to Scripture looking for some answers about how God made us. And I have all the education, all the certifications. I'm a licensed professional. But as a Christian, I also wanted to know, what does my Bible have to say about how we were made, how we are meant to be well, what happens when we get sick, how we get better. And God showed me those answers in a garden.
Well, you know, Dr. Phillips, a lot of people, Christians particularly, they really struggle with this whole issue of faith and mental health. How do you address the stigma that's attached to mental health issues within the Christian community?
It really comes down to the same stigma that's attached to mental health issues in the rest of the world. It's not just in the Christian space. It's based on a fundamental misunderstanding about the relationship between our mind and the rest of us. We have come to believe that the mind is the most powerful aspect of who we are, but that ends up not actually being true. It's the heart. And because we have misunderstood the relationship between the heart and the mind, we think we can think our way out of anything. You just need to strengthen your mind, and it hasn't been working. So it's time for us to get the real answer.
Wow. In your book, The Garden Within, which I absolutely love, you talk about the fact that there's a stigma also attached to feelings or being emotional, like, oh, she's an emotional person, like that's a bad thing. But you say we should lean into our feelings.
100%. The way we feel about emotion really informs the way we feel about mental illness, because if I'm not allowed to be sad, I'm definitely not allowed to have depression. If I'm not allowed to be anxious ever, I'm definitely not allowed to have an anxiety disorder. And so we really need to look at how we view emotion. And through God's eyes, emotion is central and beautiful. It is the soil of our lives. In the parable of the sower, Jesus tells us that the soil is the heart. And he describes different types of soil using emotion words like joy, anger, anxiety, fear. And so our emotional lives is so special to God that the seeds of his word are sown there. It doesn't say the sower went out to sow the seeds of the word on the mind. It says they were sown in the heart, in the same place where your feelings live. And so God himself, having created the heavens and the earth, knows how powerful soil is. Why would he call our heart soil if it wasn't valuable?
Wow, that is so powerful. So what can we learn from Jesus and his experience with emotions in the scriptures? Because, I mean, we see that he cried.
Jesus did more than cry.
He cried,
Jesus expressed every form of painful emotion that we have: sadness, anger, fear. We have to remember that we say this, he was fully divine and fully human, but we haven't really leaned into the fully human side that much. But Jesus stood in front of Lazarus' tomb and cries publicly. Some say he cried because his friend died. Some say because he was thinking of his pending crucifixion. Whatever he was doing, he was crying, and it wasn't tears of joy. And not only was he crying, but Jesus knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew his Father was going to raise him from the dead, yet he still allowed himself as a human to express the pain of the process. Now, we would walk around saying, well, because I have faith, I don't need to cry because I know God's going to work it out. Well, do you have more faith than Jesus? So you know what I mean?
Where did this come from? This
is cultural. It is a cultural stigma against emotion, and we have allowed that to infiltrate the way we read our Bibles. So often we study the word thinking, I need to understand the context in which it was written. but I don't take the time always to understand the context in which I'm reading it. And the culture around us says emotions make you weak, emotions cause problems. And now, though, even in the neurobiological sciences, even in evolution theory, there is a shift saying emotions must matter, because much of our view of emotion has been informed by evolutionary science, that the mind is a higher level of evolution than the heart. And we've absorbed that, not realizing it, into our theology. But even now, evolutionists are saying, well, if emotions were a problem, they would have been selected out by now. Yet they persist with the same strength generation after generation. So we need to push in and say, how were we created? What does my Bible say? And my Bible says the soil is the heart. Not only that, but go to your King James Version of your Bible. Search for every scripture that has the word heart and the word mind in it. And you will find that heart is always spoken first.
That is
and then
powerful.
the state of the mind follows the heart. So science is catching up with Scripture, but Scripture's been clear the whole time.
Up next, more of our amazing interview with Dr. Anita Phillips and the role of the church in managing our mental health. Don't go away. Here's the rest of our interview with Dr. Anita Phillips. In your experience, Dr. Anita, what role does forgiveness play? Because this is huge for a lot of people who are struggling right now in the process of healing from trauma. And how does it align with our Christian teachings?
Well, we know that the Bible tells us how important forgiveness is. And it helps us to allow anger to be released. Anger is a valid emotion. We experience it when something valuable is treated less than that. And so it is a valid emotion. But we do want to release anger, because when we hold it over time, it causes our immune system to be depressed, it undermines our mental health, and it can hurt our spiritual health as well. And so forgiveness is one of